When we think of the Bible, we may tend to think of parables of kindness and forgiveness, stories of treating one's neighbor as one's self, or turning the other cheek. But the Bible is also a book that isn't short on its violence, brutality, and even revenge. Take, for example, the story of Uzzah and the Ark of the Covenant from 2 Samuel. When the oxen hauling the ark stumbled and the ark shifted in its place, a man called Uzzah reached out to stabilize it. God, who by this point in the story was no stranger to violence, having already done a hard restart on all of humanity, struck Uzzah dead for having laid his hands on the ark. In this video, we'll be looking into a few of the darker, grittier stories from the Bible and analyzing whether it's really such a peaceful book after all. The book of Judges is one of the most violent books in all of the Bible, famous for the vengeful tale of Samson and Delilah. Samson was a hero judge of the Israelite people, possessed of immense divinely granted strength. Samson was a man of war and violence, killing lions with his bare hands and once slaughtering an entire army of Philistines with nothing more than the jawbone of a donkey. Later in the story, though, after being seduced into revealing the secret of his strength, Samson is betrayed by Delilah and captured by the Philistines, who rob him of his strength, blind him, and display him as a prisoner in their temple to Dagon. Rather than forgive his enemies, however, rather than turn the other cheek, Samson, in one last burst of divinely granted super strength, pushes down the temple pillars he is chained to, bringing the whole temple down on himself and his enemies gathered inside, killing everyone. But even before the tale of Samson, the book of Judges features another pair of graphic killings, one where a judge called Ehud is sent to save the Israelite people from the oppressive King Eglon of Moab, who is described as being a very fat man. Visiting the king on the false pretense of paying tribute to him, Ehud offered the king his tribute and watched as the king's servants took it away. Pretending to leave, Ehud paused a moment and turned back to face the fat king, saying, "Your Majesty, I have a secret message for you." Ordering his attendants to leave the room, the king motioned Ehud forward once more. The Bible then tells us that Ehud approached the king and said, "I have a message from God for you." He then drew out a sword he had strapped to his leg and thrust it into the guts of the fat king. The Bible includes the graphic detail of how the blade sank in beyond the handle and the king's fat enclosed around the weapon. Ehud then leaves the dying king on the floor and locks the doors behind him, escaping away while the wicked king Eglon died alone in his palace. Only a few chapters later, and we are treated to the story of Jael, a woman who lures a retreating Canaanite commander into her tent, then hammers a tent peg through his head while he sleeps. There is possibly more death and killing in the one book of Judges than all the rest of the Bible, but let's move on. In 1 Samuel, we get the story everyone knows, David versus Goliath, but the detail that many people don't know is the part of the story where the young, victorious David strides over to the fallen Goliath and decapitates him with his own sword. Seeing their champion dead, the Philistine army broke and fled, and they were pursued by the Israelites, to the point where the Bible tells us their dead were strewn along the Sharim road to Gath and Ekron. Later on in the same story, David has a falling out with King Saul, the same king he had saved when he volunteered to fight Goliath. And what were the origins of this falling out? Saul was angry that David's kill count was higher than his own. The Bible tells us that the people cried out, "Saul has slain his thousands, but David has slain tens of thousands." And that was just unacceptable to King Saul, so he conspired to murder David. From slinging a giant dead and decapitating his corpse to kill counts in the tens of thousands and conspiracy to murder, 1 Samuel is not one of the peaceful books of the Bible. Later on in the book of 2 Kings, Elisha, a prophet and miracle worker, is traveling on the road near the settlement of Bethel when a group of children came out of the town and started mocking him for being bald. They shouted, "Get out of here, baldy." In response to this, Elisha called down a curse upon the boys in the name of the Lord, and a pair of bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of them. Now that's grisly stuff. To finish this list, we'll move on to the New Testament and examine a story of the main man himself, Jesus Christ. There is a strange account that appears in 2 of the Gospels, wherein Jesus uses a powerful curse to kill a tree. According to Mark, while Jesus and his disciples were leaving the town of Bethany, Jesus was feeling hungry. Seeing a fig tree off in the distance, he made his way over to the tree, only to see that there was no fruit left on it. He must have been pretty annoyed, because he then said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And the tree withered and died. The Bible can teach us a lot about peace, forgiveness, and loving one's neighbor. But it's also got its fair share of violence, warfare, and even curses, and all of that is excluding some of the other books that didn't make it into the Bible, but are still accepted as canon by certain sects of Christianity. There are many more violent and strange events that take place in the Bible, but covering all of them would be a very long video, so maybe I'll revisit the topic sometime in the future. Hey, thanks for watching. I've always found these darker stories of the Bible to be pretty interesting, so I just wanted to put together a short collection of them. If you did enjoy the video, please consider subscribing to the channel, or leaving a like or a comment. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one.